Working on Master of Orion is a dream come true. I am a true fan of 4X. I have loved and enjoyed this genre through all my life since I was a little kid. We are really putting our souls in this game. We tried a lot of different things. At some moment in the project, we parted the team in two, and we tried two different approaches to the galaxy generation and to the general topology of the map. We tried different ideas for wormholes, for the star lanes. All these kind of decisions took a lot of iterations because we wanted to have it perfectly done. We wanted to capture the essence of the original Master of Orion, but in a modern context.
The galaxy of Master of Orion is in some way realistic. But obviously, inside a game's context, realism must be put aside in order to give a great experience to the player. We've proposed a galaxy generator that will provide us with tools to generate multiple galaxies in several ways, all of them being possible in science fiction, but they are obviously not necessarily realistic.
Master of Orion happens in a whole galaxy, an entire set of a lot of stars, planets, and places to explore, and it has to make sense. We create a galaxy based on a shape blueprint and then spread as many stars as we can over that shape, populating it with variety, randomizing it, but at the same time in a way you can reproduce by the galactic seed. And there are a lot of rules interacting with each other that make the system very complex. The player can play on a big galaxy, a small galaxy, one that is made just for 2 players, one that is made for 8. It can be of different shapes. The spiral galaxy is split into different arms, and each arm is like a continent separated from the others, like between water. You cannot cross it until a specific technology has been researched. So the players have their own space to work until they reach a certain point. Then they all clash together in the center. The circular galaxy is completely interconnected. There is no barrier between the players, but it covers the same space.
In Master of Orion, a player can find from the beginning of the game options to configure the galaxy and have a game experience related to what they want, from the size of the galaxy to the shape, the number of players they're going to compete with, even the age of the galaxy, which will change the planet's composition on each star. The galaxy's age completely changes the galaxy's composition by itself. That's because the age of the galaxy defines the quantity and color, and the type of stars that will be in the galaxy that is being generated or that the galaxy generator will generate. In this case, for example, choosing a young galaxy is going to generate very hot stars, which will probably have a high mineral composition, but will be less likely to generate planets that are good for supporting life.
Building the universe of Master of Orion was really a fun task. We didn't want the game to look like a board game. We wanted to give the player an immersive experience. And that's why we used reference pictures from NASA, from the Hubble telescope, from illustrations. We really wanted to make the players feel that they are inside a universe full of color, where there are millions of things to discover and to find something unique every time they arrived on a planet to create a fun experience.
The player can find what everyone expects to find in space: planets, asteroids, and all the other obvious things in any game of this genre. However, in Master of Orion, it is possible to find pieces that are related to a bit like the original game spirit. One can find space monsters. One can find other alien races. These independent civilizations are planets that chose not to become starfarers because they don't have the technology or because their leaders didn't want to. And these planets will be are an interesting part of the economy and the game's development, both in the middle game and in the end game.
The player starts in one star. It doesn't know the map of the galaxy, and each star is interconnected to each other by star lanes. Star lanes are good for adding board control. It's a place you can defend, it's a place you know the other players have to go through to get to your planets. So you can build defenses on them to defend the whole star system instead of just one of the planets in it. Or make a barrier to prevent another civilization from getting across a certain region of the galaxy.
The star lanes bring to the game something very interesting from the strategic point of view. For example, the territorial control, the possibility of generating choke points in the shipping lanes, meeting points where combats are more frequent. Likewise, it gives the player a clearer idea of Imperial growth, but mainly at a gameplay level. It gives us the chance to have a kind of terrain in place where terrain does not exist, that is, in space. Territoriality in these games is very important. It gives a feeling of not only progress, but of ownership, and not having territoriality is impossible to transmit, yes, particularly to transmit this feeling to the player. To add star lanes to the universe generation allowed us also to, as well as generating those choke points, allowed us to create a new unit in Master of Orion, which is the Space Factory. So this unit, the Space Factory, generates like a parallel game based on, let's say, on the same rules that the original game of colonial development. But it is a factory that, unlike the colony, can move by itself and use its own production points, which generates a new rhythm in game-playing terms.
We had to make the UX super clean because this game is a deep game and it has a lot of information, and all the things you do in the games is UI. So it's very important for the UI to be clean and easy to use and engaging and meaningful.
The goal for the user experience is to bring the experience from Master of Orion to this new game. The challenge for us was to make sure that all the tools for the hardcore players were there to use without overwhelming the new users that are coming to play our game. It's pretty hard to find the balance between the hard player and the casual player because the hardcore player needs a lot of information and usually doesn't fit the actual space from the screen. And we're also trying to reduce the spreadsheet syndrome that the old one has, so we even have to put more information at the old games. Colony screen was the hardest one. We have a lot of back and forth with that screen, trying stuff, trying to make it feel good and trying to make it work as expected with the feeling of Master of Orion. And we started with a couple of sliders. So it was kind of fun, but it was not usable and it was not clear for the user what he was doing. So after that, we're trying to introduce the guys again. We put a grid that represents the planet's surface, and each grid could have either production or food or both, but that ended up being too complex and not very clear, so it was not easy to use either. So we ended up on the Master of Orion 2 kind of way of 3 sliders with food production research. That was the best thing that we came up. After all the tries, that was the one that ended up being the most useful and the most rewarding as well, because moving the guy from one place to another, it feels good as well. So I'm pretty happy with it.